I apologize for the abrupt ending of my last screencast. I wasn't paying very close attention to the timer at the bottom. So I was talking about stanza or section two, and I was rolling into sections two and three. And we were just talking about the fact that they seem to be afraid of something, these hollow men, but we're not really quite sure what it is. And in stanza two and three, the speaker is asking that the souls in heaven stay away from the hollow men because the hollow men don't wish to be any nearer to heaven. Um, or to anyone who might tell them kind of more about themselves that they are something about themselves that they don't want to know. In this last little section of stanza two, there it says, "Let me also wear such deliberate disguises, rat's coat, crowskin, cross staves, in a field, behaving as the wind behaves." It's a direct comparison to those scarecrows. They're trying to disguise themselves as something they aren't. The wind is moving them just like it would a scarecrow, and um, these deliberate disguises of crow skin and cross staves. The third stanza is only two lines, not that final meeting in the Twilight Kingdom. So it's kind of like they don't want to be any nearer to that final meeting in the Twilight Kingdom. They don't want to be any closer to God's judgment of them. Okay, so moving into section three. So in stanza one, there, the setting that they're living in is more closely described, is further described. Just as the men are broken, dry, and barren, so is the dead land, the cactus land that they live in. It's a desert, and it's filled with cacti and also with stone images, which is interesting. It says, "Here the stone images are raised. Here they receive the supplication of a dead man's hand under the twinkling of a fading star." So the stones have been raised. It's kind of like, it's odd. I don't know, honestly. I feel like monoliths, like Stonehenge. Is that what we're talking about here? They're rising to the heavens, maybe begging for heaven's help. I'm not really sure. The supplication of a dead man's hand, so like in prayer. It's a strange image. It says under the twinkling of a fading star, though the star is fading. It's very distant. It's far out of reach. But it still represents some kind of hope for them, maybe, until it finishes fading. So it's fading away. It's on its way out. In section three, stanza two, the hollow men ask if death's other kingdom is like theirs. It says, "Is it like this in death's other kingdom? Waking alone at the hour when we are trembling with tenderness, lips that would kiss form prayers to broken stone." So they appear to be in some kind of purgatory, possibly, maybe between life and death. Their hope is minimal. That in the future, that in the other kingdom, that they are happier than they are, that they are better off than they are there in season two. So those in the other kingdom of death are better off, but not much more, right? They still walk alone at the same time as the hollow men do. They're just not completely alone. They still form the prayers to the broken stones, just like the hollow men do. Okay, in section four, stanzas one and two, we have a return to the image of those eyes. The eyes are not here. There are no eyes here in this valley of dying stars, in this hollow valley, this broken jaw of our lost kingdoms. Um, So it's really kind of unclear what he intended, but perhaps it's maybe dying like physical, like diminishing or physical degradation. Um, it's kind of hit and miss, like what that really means. There are no eyes here, so the eyes are not here. There are no eyes here. It could be blind eyes. It could be no eyes at all. So there is a lot kind of up for interpretation there. In the second stanza, um, they say, in this last of meeting places, we grope together and avoid speech, gathered on this beach of the tumid river. So um, we may be talking about they've come to the river Styx there, in their purgatory. Um, so they're gathered together in the last of meeting places where they can avoid the eyes, right? The judgment, right? The men stand on the beach of the Tumid River. Tumid means swollen, which could possibly be, connecting back to that epigraph about the coins and the river Styx. They stand without talking. They avoid speech, for someone to take them across. And they're stuck, right? They're stuck there in that purgatory. Then maybe they didn't have the coins for Sharon. Sightless, unless the eyes reappear as the perpetual star uh, foliate rose of death's twilight kingdom, the hope only of empty men. So this one is the multifoliate rose is again back to Dante. This is from Paradiso, the third book of the Divine Comedy. The rose has many petals, and in Dante's Paradiso is the is kind of a symbol for heaven. The kingdom is a rose of God's grace, His good virtues, of angels. Um, so it's not until those eyes come back that and change themselves into a star, this multifoliate rose of heaven, that they are going to be, the hollow men are going to be able to see again. They're sightless unless the eyes appear. So this is when their hope will truly return. They're stuck there. They're stuck by the river Styx. They're not able to go forward. They're not able to go backward. They're desolate. They're alone, and they're sightless unless the eyes reappear. Okay, so section 5. It's different, obviously, than what we've seen before. Here we're switching kind of over to a song of some sorts. There's a nursery rhyme called Here We Go Round the Mulberry Bush, and so I think that that is where this kind of connects to. So here we go round the prickly pear, prickly pear. Here we go round the prickly pear at 5 o'clock in the morning. Perhaps this is something they sing to themselves. They have the cactus there, reminiscent of, instead of the mulberry bush, is reminiscent of their desert landscape. And they're dancing at 5, round and round the prickly pear at 5 o'clock in the morning. So all along, the thing in that second stanza, the thing that has kept them from changing their situation, or uh, getting anywhere between the idea and the reality, between the motion and the act, falls the shadow. So it's really kind of undefined for us what the shadow is, but we see it repeated there again in the next stanza. It is what comes between the idea and the reality, what comes between the motion and the act. And it kind of blocks any intentions for change that the men might have. There's no way for them to act uh, and and move forward. So in stanza 3 of 5. It starts, for thine is the kingdom. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen. I think the Lord's Prayer at the end there. It's missing the ending, obviously, and the power and the kingdom and the glory forever and ever. Amen. It's just a fragment, right? A fragment of the Lord's Prayer. So they have good intentions, um, but they can't act. They can't do anything to completion, which is why it's fragmented there. We can't end it. Life is very long between the desire and the spasm, between the potency and the existence, between the essence and the descent falls the shadow. There we go again, where that shadow is hiding. There's other places that they hide between the desire and the spasm, very reminiscent of the previous stanza, between the potency and the existence, essence and the descent. Um, it's between uh, the shadow is blocking everything in between. They're unable to get from the beginning to the end. The life is very long. It's just kind of like a simple expression. However, they are stuck. So life could be very long indeed in this purgatory that they're in. Again, here in the next stanza with the beginning of the Lord's Prayer, for thine is the kingdom. And then we see, for thine is, life is, for thine is thee. So it's like they're trying to pray, but they're being blocked from being able to complete it. For thine is the kingdom, for thine is, for life is, for thine is thee. All right, so section 5. Oh, I'm sorry. The end. So the end of the poem here is possibly the most famous ones that Eliot ever wrote. This is the way the world ends. This is the way the world ends. This is the way the world ends, not with a bang, but a whimper. So this phrase is connected back up to where this is the way uh, um, the earlier in the first stanza. So the speakers are okay, are standing at the precipice of the end of the world, right? And they are unable to do anything about it. Um, the world is not going to end with huge wars and catastrophic damage or an explosion in this world, right? The world that they are living in. It goes out like the men do, with a whimper. Um, it's dark. Um, Anticlimactic, I guess, maybe to the end of this world. We don't get any kind of closure. We don't get any kind um, of peace about the way that this. Summing up the last little bit, these men, these blind men living in purgatory, in between heaven and hell, that dream kingdom that they want to go to, but they're unable to. Um, their efforts are being blocked by whatever the shadow is that's paralyzed all their activities. They can't act, they can't think, they can't create, they can't respond, they can't even exist. They're just like static. And so everything is so fragmented, and they, the end is here. They're just trapped, and their world doesn't end in an explosion, in a bang. It ends in a whimper. But he seems to give them some hope. Um, you, the stars and the um, the stars and um, uh, I'm sorry, I'm not repeating myself like multiple times, and my train of thought just disappears sometimes. The stars seem to give them some hope that they might still be able to receive God's grace, although they don't really deserve it. Um, so yeah,